Shortly, Instagram is live as well. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. Today's date, Wednesday. Yes, May the 20th, 2020. We will never have another. We'll never have another May 20th, 2020 ever again. So please, let's make the most of this right here. I'm gonna make the most of your next couple of minutes as y'all come into this live. Y'all know what it is. Tell me your name and location in the comment section. If you're on Facebook, hit the share button. You got that opportunity. Hit the like button and the share button. Actually, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, ain't no like button. You can tap the screen and let those hearts roll. And if you are, if you're also on Instagram, you can leave a comment. So Facebook, y'all can leave a comment too. People on Facebook be lurking, but it's all good. You can lurk. Just hit that like button, hit that share button. Facebook, Instagram. Y'all watching this? Tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. Where you checking in from? Since I can't see your real names on IG. We got Carlos checking in from Spain with the first comment. Congrats, Carlos. We getting started in like 20 seconds. I ain't even gonna take too much time anymore on the introduction part. I'm gonna shout out the first person who tell me the name and location. Carlos already did that, so he got it for the day. And then if somebody comes in while I'm doing my intros, I'll shout them out. But then we gotta get into the business. So for those of y'all who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, former 9-year professional basketball player, author of 26 books. John from Kissimmee, Florida, was good. Author of 26 books, creator or speaker on 4 TED stages. I'm a keynote speaker, coach, consultant, trainer, podcast producer. I'm an Uber producer of content. I produce over 15,000 pieces of content. Jaspile checking in from Calgary, Alberta. 15,000 pieces of content, 7,000 YouTube videos, 7,000 articles, over 1,500 podcast episodes. None of those numbers are exaggerated. You can Google them, look them up. All that being said, I created all of this stuff that I do under this whole framework called Work on Your Game. It's all about taking the pro athlete mindset, the mentality you need to be successful in sports, and applying that mentality to your business and to your life. We got Jason checking in from Kaunas. Shout out to Kaunas, Lithuania. That's the first place I went overseas. And what we're going to talk about here today, under this framework of Work on Your Game, and that's also one of my books. I'll tell you about this later on in the day, if we got time for that, if I even remember to talk about it. But y'all, if you stay tuned, you'll hear about that and everything else I got going on moving forward. My aim today is to earn your time, is to keep listening to me in the future with what you're going to get today. So if I'm not good today, then you don't ever have to listen to me again. But if it's good, then you would help yourself by coming back. Today's topic is choosing your education. Why am I talking about this topic? Well, for several reasons. First of all, education is an important thing. Even though some of y'all may be in formal schooling right now, whether that's college or high school, and you might think, well, this is BS. I don't really want to be in school. I just want to blank. You just want to start a business. You just want to get out of school. You just want to hang with your friends. You just want to be a professional video gamer. You want to be an influencer. You want to just play a sport professionally. You don't really want to be in school. I understand, because listen, when I was in school, I felt that same way probably from about the age of 16 on. I pretty much decided I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to play professional basketball, and I knew that nothing that I was going to learn, at least during class time of school, was going to help me do that. Maybe recess or lunchtime when we could play basketball, that would help me. And then in college, of course, you got to go to class and be eligible so you can play on the basketball team. So I went to school for that, but it was nothing that I thought I was going to learn in the classroom that was going to prepare me for the life that I was going to live in my future. And you know what? I was absolutely right. So I'm not here to tell you or to wag my finger at you and tell you that you need to pay attention in school because there's something in school that you might learn that could help you, even though there may be. Listen, school has probably changed a whole lot from the time that I was in school. I graduated from college I'm 38 now, so I graduated college how many years ago? I don't even know. 16 years ago? 2004? 16 years ago. So things may have changed a lot, and you don't go to the same school that I went to. So your situation may not be like my situation. And you may not know exactly what you want to do with your life. It would be a good reason for you to stay in school so you could at least maybe listen, learn, talk to people. Maybe you'll find out something that may spark your interest that you weren't thinking about up until this point. So I'm bringing up the education part because I have people who will come to me and say, Dre, I don't really like this school thing. I just want to do this, or this. They already know what they want to do, or at least they think they do. And they don't want to pay attention in school. They just want to move on and do their thing. So I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. But I am here to tell you that once you are finished with school, that does not mean you are done learning. That doesn't mean your education is over. That doesn't mean you stop enhancing your intelligence. It doesn't mean you stop challenging your intellect. It doesn't mean you stop getting smarter. Any of you have been to a graduation? I know this year they couldn't do graduations, right? They couldn't do the commencement ceremonies. You understand that graduations, they call them commencements, right? College, high school, middle school, kindergarten, they call it the commencement ceremony. You know what commencement means? Commencement means to begin. Commencement doesn't mean the end. Commencement means the start, is the beginning of the next phase of your life. That doesn't mean you're done. It doesn't mean you never open a book again. It doesn't mean you never learn again. There's a study that showed, I don't remember the exact percentage that they said, but a large percentage of people, once they finish their formal education, whether they finish at 8th grade, high school, or college, that the majority of people, when they're done with school, they never read a book again in their life on their own volition. They never read another book unless they're forced to read a book. And usually the only time we get forced to read a book is in school. Now, I'm not here to tell you here today that you have to read books, but books are one way to get education. We'll get into that as we get into this conversation. But all of that being said, people ask me often, I often get asked this question, Dre, what's one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self? Whenever I meet people who are younger than me, people who are trying to grow and expand and get better, they say, all right, well, you're a little bit older than me. You got some experiences that I don't have. That's them looking at me. And they say, all right, what's something that you wish you knew when you were my age? This might be a college student, might be somebody in their 20s. They say, when you were my age, Dre, what's one thing you wish somebody had told you that they never told you? You wish you knew it back then. Here is what it is. Anybody want to know the answer to this question? Here it is. Start choosing your education as early as possible. This is the one piece of information, that one piece of advice that I wish I knew when I was 15 or 22 or 31. I wish somebody had told me, start choosing your education as quickly as possible and take it serious the same way that you had to take school serious, or you had to take basketball serious, or you had to take running a business serious. Anything that you take serious in life, take your education serious. And I'm not talking about the education that you get in school, in a classroom, a lecture hall, or a textbook. I'm talking about the education that you choose to get in your own life. And you don't have to be out of school to apply this stuff. You can get education outside of school even while you are in school. When I was in college, I still had books on my little bookshelf in my college apartment that I would read that had nothing to do with school, because that material was more interesting to me than the material that I was getting at school. And you need to be doing this as well. And what do I mean by this when I say choosing your education? It means how and where and from whom you learn material that is not prescribed by teachers in school. How, where, and from whom you are learning that is not prescribed by somebody in school. That's what I mean when I say self-education. And I'm going to tell you something to sell you on the topic of self-education. My self-education has made me a whole lot more money than my formal education ever made me and ever will make me. My self-education is how I became a professional athlete. My self-education is how I built a brand and likeness on the internet. My self-education is the reason that I have a business today. I just got off, just 30 minutes ago, just got off a coaching call with some people who are coaching me. I paid them to coach me. That is my education. I paid them to educate me on what I need to know about building my business. And that's self-education. Nobody made me do that. I was not forced to do it. It is not a requirement. I didn't have to sign up for that. I didn't have to get on a coaching call. I don't have to pay them. But I chose to do that because that's my self-education. If I didn't have that information, I didn't have the strategies or the accountability that I'm getting from the people that I am empowering to educate me, then I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing and what I'm going to do as an entrepreneur moving forward. So any of you who plans on advancing and getting better in anything that you do, you have to be getting your education from somewhere. I mean, even if you look at sports, for example, I just finished today, I watched the last 2 episodes of the Michael Jordan documentary, which many of you probably have seen, or at least you heard of. Every athlete has a coach, right? Every athlete, even if you don't, every team sport athlete has a coach, and every individual sport athlete, like a track athlete, they got trainers, right? I was reading this article about, how they pushed the Olympics back this year. So they're supposed to be in Tokyo this summer. They had to postpone it till next summer. So all those athletes, like the track athletes, I was reading this article that this woman who's a sprinter, I think it was Allison Felix. She's a sprinter and she has a trainer. And her trainer work together, and they're trying to optimize her body for what? To win that gold medal in the Olympics every year, or those gold medals, however many she's trying to win. But now they got to change their whole program because now they got to wait a whole year before she can go again. But the whole point is this: she has a coach. She has a trainer. She's one of the fastest, maybe the fastest woman on the planet. She has a trainer. Michael Jordan was the best basketball player in the world. He had a coach and he had a trainer. Outside of his job with the Bulls, he had a trainer that he paid in order to keep himself in his best shape. Kobe Bryant had a coach and had a trainer. Anybody you know who's really great at what they do, they have either a coach or a trainer or somebody who's a hybrid of both, and that person is empowered to educate this person, set that person straight, hold them accountable. And the question is, do you have that person in your life? And if you don't, then hopefully what I tell you here today will help you to change your mind and take some different actions. Point number 1, the topic again is choosing your education. Key aspect of success, ladies and gentlemen, is choosing wisely. There are 8 elements of success in life that go outside of hard work. Is hard work a major aspect of being successful in life? The answer is yes. You want to be successful in life, you must work hard. But understand, if all you do is work hard in life and you don't put these other 8 elements into practice, you will not become successful. You want to know what those 8 elements are? I got a free video masterclass. Costs you absolutely nothing. You can watch it right now. Go to hardworkaintenough.com. Hardworkaintenough.com. But the first aspect, I'll tell you the number one thing that I say in that masterclass: choosing wisely. This is one of the most important aspects of hard work. Because if you work really hard on the wrong thing, does it matter that you worked really hard? No. If you work really hard on the right thing, does it matter? Yes. There's a huge difference when you make the right choice. In school, all your education is forced upon you, right? When I was in school, one year you get the class record, all the classes you got to go to. So I had like math class, art class, history class. We had health class. Gym is a class. Like, we had all these. I'm like, what is any of this? I don't need any of this. And for what I want to do professionally, none of this is going to help me at all. But I didn't have a choice. I had to go to these classes. If I didn't go to class, then I'd be like, that would be cutting class, and then I might get suspended or detention, or it would make me look bad. All right, it would stop me from getting to where I wanted to go. So I had to go through the BS of what school forced upon me. But in real life, it's not forced upon you. In real life, you could choose who you want to listen to and who you want to learn from. In real life, you don't have to listen to everybody. In real life, you don't have to go to all the classes. In real life, you get to choose the classes, but you must choose the classes. See, you get to choose the classes, but you still must make a choice. So when it comes to your education outside of school, who are you going to listen to? Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. You can't listen to everybody. So don't take what I'm saying here today to mean go and subscribe to every podcast that's out and buy every book on Amazon and listen to every person who's doing a live stream and read every caption on Instagram, because you don't want to listen to everybody for a couple of reasons. Number one, you don't have the mental capacity to implement or even to understand and take in everything that everybody's saying, because there's too many people. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough eyes and ears to take in everything that everybody is saying. Number two, everybody does not have the same way of doing things, and people have different opinions. I might tell you something right here, and then somebody else, some other guru / expert / author, they're going to tell you something that's kind of completely different from what I'm saying. Now, your question is, which one should you listen to? Well, that's your choice. That's why I said the first aspect of being successful in life, in addition to hard work, is choosing. You must choose who are you going to listen to. If you go listen to the news, you got the Democratic side saying this thing, and you got the Republican side saying this thing. CNN is telling you one thing, Fox is telling you another thing. Who's right and who's wrong? Neither one of them. But you got to choose which one you want to listen to, because if you listen to both, you're going to be confused, because they saying the exact opposite thing about the exact same piece of information. So you have to choose wisely who you are going to listen to. If you listen to everybody, eventually 2 or more people's information is going to conflict, is going to butt heads. One person's going to say this thing, another person's going to say the exact opposite. You're going to wonder who to listen to. You got to make that choice. Who are the people you're going to follow in whatever certain area? If you're into sports, who are you going to listen to about sports? If you're into marketing, who are you going to listen to about that? If you're into, getting big muscles, there's a lot of people with big muscles. Which one you going to listen to? Whose program are you going to follow? Whose nutrition diet plan are you going to mimic your lifestyle after? You have to make these decisions. You cannot take in everything and listen to everybody. There are too many people out there. At masterclass number 283 of my show at Work on Your Game University, right there on Instagram and right up there on Facebook, I talked about this. You got to choose your gurus and eliminate the rest. Who are you going to learn from in each specific area that matters to you? So you can be open to listening to many people, but then you got to choose a few. So listen to everybody and see what everybody's talking about, see what their style is, see what formats they deliver on. Some people have audio, some people do video, some people do written, some people do a combination, some people do all of them. But you got to choose who you're going to listen to and how you're going to follow those people. Hopefully you pick somebody who has a ton of information, so that you never get to the bottom of their knowledge. They always got new knowledge coming out and new things that they're creating. And people who really know their stuff, they're always putting out something new because they got plenty of things to share. Point number 2. Today's topic is choosing your education. Choosing wisely. Very important point. Number 2, any of you or everybody here who's listening to this has either been in school, or maybe some of y'all are in school. And when you're in school, when you have a test, right? A history test. History, that's another class they made us take that I don't remember a damn thing from. History class, math class, science class, you got a test. And on the test, what do you got to do? You got to close all your books, put everything away, and then this piece of paper is there, and you got to prove that you memorized or you retained enough of the information to hopefully pass the test, and you pass enough tests, you pass the class, you can move on to the next grade, and you can eventually get the hell out of there. I want you to understand something about life that makes it a little bit different from school. Actually, a lot different from school. In school, usually when there's a test, you got to close all your books and put everything away. You're not allowed to consult any other information, right? You can't look at your phone. I know one of my friends from college, her husband, he's a teacher. And he's like, yeah, when I'm giving the test in class, I'll be checking to make sure the kids ain't using their phones. They be trying to look at their phones and Google stuff. I got to catch them so they don't cheat. So you can't use your phone because we didn't have phones back in the day. No phone, no books, no little slips of paper. You can't write on your hand or none of that stuff, right? And life is the exact opposite. Everything in school is a closed book test. You got to close the books to take the test. In life, everything is an open book test. Life's an open book test. So, for example, if you got a challenge in your life right now and you think there's something in this book that can help you, you could open the book and read through the entire book until you find the answer that you're looking for. You could go on your phone. You could Google anything you want. You could call anybody you want. You can hire anybody you want. Any problem that you have in school, you have to come and try to jog your memory, and hopefully you remember the right answer and put it on the paper so you can pass the test. In life, when you have a challenge, you can look at anything you want. You can talk to anybody. You can call anybody. You can Google anybody. You can go to the library. You can go to Amazon. You can hire. You can sign up for a course. You can do anything you want to get the right information. That is the huge difference between school and life. The information is always out there and available to you. You are never restricted from accessing it whenever you need it, which means this: you have no excuses for failing due to a lack of information. In life, well, let me back up. In school, you might fail because you just don't remember the information. All right, maybe there's a question on the test. You're like, I have no idea what this is about. I didn't read that chapter of the book, and you're pretty much gonna get that question wrong, so you don't even waste time on it. Like, I know I'm failing this test. I've been there, trust me. But in life, you know exactly you see exactly what the question is, and you can ask whatever questions you want to get the answers. You can go to whoever you want who may have that information. You remember the show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And on that show, what could you do? You could call somebody on the phone. Right? Let me use a lifeline. Let me call somebody who might know the answer to this question. Here's the question. Here are the choices. What do you know? Life is an open book test, ladies and gentlemen. However, let me be clear on something. Just because it's an open book test doesn't mean you're going to pass. You got the book. Now you got to open the book. All right, just because you have the book doesn't mean you know what's in the book. You still got to open it and you got to read it. So even though life is an open book test, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. You still got to know what book to open. Number two, you got to know where in the book to turn. And number three, you got to read and implement what you read out of the book. Do you understand that? So it's not just because the open book test doesn't mean you're going to pass. All right, I failed plenty of closed book tests in college, but there is no excuse for failing an open book test in life, because all you got to do is figure out what's the right book to read. What page do I need to turn to on that book? Because it might be a 500-page book. I mean, how many pages is Google? If Google was a book, how many pages would it be? 100 million pages? Which page do you turn to? Now, you ain't got all day to get to the answer. So you got to know what page to turn to. In other words, what question to ask. And then number three, when you get the information, you get to the right page. All right, what is this information? You got to take in the information. You got to interpret the information. Then you got to know how to implement the information. All right, so just because it's an open book does not mean it's easy. Okay, so don't think. I remember when we was in school, the teacher might say, well, we're going to have an open book test on Friday. And everybody's like, oh, that's going to be easy. I mean, that's a guaranteed A. No, it ain't. Open book test is not a guaranteed A. Open book test means you have a better opportunity because the information is in front of you. But if you don't know where to look, you're still going to fail the test. All right, so the open book test does not mean it's going to be easy. Don't sleep. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. Don't think that it's sweet. Point number three. Today's topic, for those who came in the middle of this, is choosing your education in life. In school, education is forced on you. In life, you got to choose education. If you don't choose, well, you can choose to be uneducated. Point number three, remember that the brain is a muscle. The biceps are a muscle, the calves are a muscle, the hamstrings are a muscle, your abs, you got a six-pack, that's a muscle, your triceps are a muscle, you got muscles in your back. There are muscles all over your body, and you can see them. You look up some bodybuilders or some fitness models on Instagram, and you can see all the muscles that they are showing you, or that they're working out when they're showing you whatever they want to show you in their posts. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing, the brain is a muscle as well. The brain is a muscle, meaning, I'm using this as a metaphor, calling the brain a muscle, that when it's worked out, that means when it gets used regularly, when it's regularly challenged, you regularly ask your brain to do some lifting, to do some work, then what happens? What happens to a muscle when you work it out all the time? I mean, you give it Of course, you give it the normal amount of breaks. But when you go to the gym on a consistent basis, what happens to your muscles? They get bigger, or they get stronger, or they get more cut up. Like you got that more toned or that cut physique, depending on what you're going for. Your body fat goes down, your energy goes up. Your heart rate slows down. You just look better. You feel better. Everybody notices. You're probably eating good things to go along with it. When you work out regularly, the muscles get into better shape. And when you recruit the muscles to do something for you, if you got to run after somebody, or you're getting chased by a dog, or you got to get into an athletic competition, when you work out the muscles, they perform better. All right, everybody understands that? What happens when you work out the brain? When you work out the brain on a consistent basis, what does it do? It becomes more sharp. It works for you when you call on it. It is ready to go when you ask it to do something for you. When you challenge your brain to think, it's ready to think. It's on its toes. It's ready to go. It's ready. It's in that athletic, ready, prepared, poised position when you are consistently using it. But what happens when you don't use your muscles? Anybody here, anybody watching this who hasn't been into the gym in a long time, or you haven't worked out in a long time? Let's not say the gym, because we know the gym's been closed for months. I ain't been to the gym in a long time, but I still work out every day. So who hasn't worked out at all this year? I don't know if there's anybody in here who hasn't. But if you ain't worked out at all this year or in a long time, what happens to your muscles? They start to atrophy. You don't know what atrophy means. It means they start to, somebody just said it, triple T. They start to waste away, right? So you go from having muscles to not having muscles. Like you used to be cut up, but now you ain't cut up no more. You used to have a 10-pack. Now you got a 2-pack. All right, now you got a 2-pack in your stomach. It ain't even a 10-pack anymore. You got a 2-pack. The muscles shrink down, as Triple TCB said here. They shrink down. They get smaller. They're not as strong. So you used to be able to lift. You got a kid who weighs 100 pounds. You used to be able to pick up your son. Now you can't pick up your son no more because your muscle's too weak. Your back goes out when you try to bend down and pick up a toy off the floor. You don't have the same power that you used to have. Why? Because you stop using the muscle. When you stop using your muscles stop working. They are not as strong. They don't look as good. And when you finally need them, because you might have stopped working out because you're like, I don't need to work out, man. I'd rather just focus on my business. I'd rather hang out with my girl. Or I need to do this. I need to focus on my job. So you just stop going to the gym. I want to save that $35 a month for the membership. So you stop going to the gym. Like, I don't need muscles. What do I need muscles for? I ain't no athlete. Let me just go do my job and get this money. But then when you finally need your muscles for something, oh, your muscles ain't ready to go. Your muscles is like, oh, hold on, homie. You ain't been using us for 8 months. Now all of a sudden you want something. Now you want something? Oh, now you want us to lift something. Oh, now you want to pick your son up. Oh, now you need to run away from that dog. Oh, but you ain't been working out for 8 months. I thought you didn't need us anymore. Now the muscles ain't ready to go. It's the same thing that your brain will do when you don't use it. And this is why I told you at the beginning of this live here that the majority of people, when they finish school, whatever school, college, grad school, high school, whatever, the majority of people after school never open a book again for the rest of their lives. They never read anything again. Why? I guess they think they don't need it. They thought these people incorrectly believe that education, in other words, school in this sense, is a necessary evil. It's just something that I got to go through so I can get through that and I get on with the things I really want to do. But understand, even though you may have hated school, you might have seen school as useless, you might have thought all your teachers were idiots, and there were times that I thought all of those things. At the same time, I also understood that the education that I give myself is going to be infinitely more valuable than the education that anybody else gives me. And the education you give yourself is the choices that you make. Who are you going to go learn from that you're not forced to learn from them? So you think about the teacher at school, they got a guaranteed audience. They know every year there's going to be 30 people in their class and they get to teach education or writing, not education, but writing or history or art or gym or health or science or whatever hell class they're teaching, right? The teacher knows they got a guaranteed audience of 30 people every year. Anybody else out there, the entrepreneurs out there who are selling information on the intellectual property or coaching or speaking or podcasting or books or live streams or whatever, we're not guaranteed an audience. The only audience we're going to have are people who are wise enough to choose to get educated. The question I'm giving to you is, how often are you making that choice to get educated? And then who are you going to get educated by? You got to make choices here. So that's two choices. Are you going to choose to get educated? And number two, who's going to educate you? And number two could be, what education do you need or want? And number three, who's going to give it to you? These are all questions that you got to ask. If you're not using your brain, the brain atrophies. It will start to waste away. It will not work. When you need an idea, your brain won't deliver. When you need to think critically, your brain won't be able to do it. When somebody asks you a tough question, you won't be able to answer it because your brain's not used to working. Your brain gets out of shape. You ever seen an out of shape person in the gym? You ever seen somebody in the gym who you could tell they don't normally go to the gym, but they're in the gym that day, and you can see them struggling. You can tell they don't know what they're doing. You can tell they don't know their way around the gym. All right, that's the way your brain looks when you try to think, but you have not been using your brain for the last 3 years. All right, your brain looks like that fat person in the gym who know they don't look like they belong in the gym, don't look like they ever going to come back. They struggling in the gym. They feel so embarrassed that they see everybody looking at them, knowing that they don't belong there. They usually don't come back. That's the way your brain looks when you don't challenge yourself to think, because you are not choosing your education wisely. Now, let me recap these points here. In the forms of education, actually, before I get to that, you can educate yourself by reading. The reason why I bring up books is because when somebody writes a book, they're basically taking a year or 10 years or 50 years of their life, condensing it down into 300 pages, 100 pages that you can read, and it costs you $20, and you can read the whole thing. You can get 10 years of somebody's life, the most important parts of 10 years of somebody's life in 3 weeks, and the amount of time it takes you to read a book. That's the value of a book, that you are getting a huge experience from a period of someone's life condensed down into a very small part. So basically, when people read the cliff notes, like the summary, the shortened version of a book, makes no sense, because the book already is giving you a summary. The book is already a summary, okay? So when you read, who put out a book that's really popular? Michelle Obama put out a book last year. That thing had more 5-star reviews than I've ever seen on a book ever in my life. Michelle Obama took her whole life. How old is Michelle Obama? 40, 50-something years old? She took her whole life and condensed it down into a book that you can read in a month. That's already the cliff notes. All right, she's giving you the cliff notes of her whole damn life. All right, you don't need the cliff notes of the cliff notes. All right, now you're taking shortcuts. Now you're short-circuiting your education. So that's why I mentioned books, because people got to take time to put that together, give you the best stuff from whatever topic or period they want to write about. They're giving you the condensed version. So take it all in. Don't be cheap. Don't be lazy with your time. Don't be lazy with your education. So reading, taking courses, going to seminars, going to conferences, subscribing to somebody's podcast or YouTube. They have some educational, valuable material, not the garbage, useless, nonsense stuff, but the stuff that's actually going to make you better. All that stuff is a form of education, but you got to make the choice to go to this stuff. All right, nobody can force you to get on YouTube or watch a Netflix documentary or read a book. All right, nobody can force you to do that. You got to choose to do it, and if you don't choose wisely when it comes to your education, okay, it's your life. You can do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm telling you what you can do. If you choose not to do it, one thing you can never say is that nobody put you on to the information. So now let me recap the topic, which is choosing your education. Then I'm going to tell you about these 2 publications I got here in front of me. Then if anybody has a question, I'll answer it right down in the comments. So the topic here is choosing your education. People ask me what's one thing I would tell my younger self. The most important thing I would tell my younger self is start choosing your education as early as possible. Understanding the value of self-education and then actually implementing self-education since you know what it is. Number 1. Key aspect of success is choosing wisely. I told you y'all can get that full masterclass at hardworkaintenough.com. That's hardworkaintenough.com, free masterclass. Key aspect of success, choosing wisely. In school, all your education is forced on you. In life, you can choose whatever education you want. So in school, you had to go to health, art, gym, science, math. In life, you could just choose one topic and just study that all day, every day if you want. If you want to be a professional video gamer, you could just study playing video games all day, every day. You don't ever have to take art class or science or math or any of that ever again if you don't want to. Whatever subject you want to learn, you can go all in on that subject 100% and never take any subject that you're not interested in. That's the great thing about self-education. You have 100% control over the topic. But you must choose who you're going to learn from, because there are a lot of people out here with a lot of different information. Not everybody thinks the same way. Not everybody agrees on everything, which makes sense because not everybody's the same. So you got to choose who you're learning from and make sure you go deep into everything that they share. So make sure you choose somebody who has a lot of information and a lot of things to share, because the best people, the best experts, they have a ton of content and they are always creating new content. If you ever consume somebody's content and you pretty much consumed everything they ever made, that person probably is not as smart as you think they are. Point number 2. Life is an open book test. In school, you got closed book tests, right? You can't pull out your textbook. You can't use your phone. But in life, you could use whatever you want. All right. In life, when you got a problem, you could call anybody. You could read anything. You could Google any website. You can get information from however you need to get it, you get it. But if you solve the problem, you win. If you don't solve the problem, you lose. That's just the way it works in life. It's an open book test. Whatever resources you want to use to solve any problem that you're facing in life, the whole world is available to you. The problem is, first of all, you got to know what book to look in. Second of all, what page to turn to. And third, you got to interpret the information. Fourth, you got to implement the information. Fifth, you got to make sure that it works. So just because life is an open book test does not mean it's easy. And point number 3, the brain is a muscle. Do not let it atrophy. If you don't use your physical muscles, your body gets smaller, your muscles shrivel up, and when you need to use them for something, they're not ready. And in life, if you don't use your brain as a muscle, the brain shrivels up, it stops working, and when you finally need it to solve a problem or to answer a question or handle a tough challenge in life, it is not available because you have failed to use the muscle. All that being said, anybody got a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section. I'm going to tell you about these 2 books right here, and that's going to be that. This book right here is already paid for. It's free. I'll give you this book worldwide. I will ship it to your doorstep. Let me tell you what it is and why you want it. It's called The Mirror of Motivation. The subtitle is The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. I wrote this book for anybody out there who feels like you need to shed the old you, step into the new you, start being who you truly want to be so you can do what you really want to do with your life and have the life that you really want to have. You feel like you need to reignite your passion, lock back in with your real, true inner self, who you really are, not the person you've been pretending to be, but the person who you actually are. Get this book right here. It's called The Mirror of Motivation. It's the Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. I already paid for the book because I want to get this into your hands. So go to mirrorofmotivation.com. You take care of the shipping. I've already paid for the book. You take care of the shipping. Mirrormotivation.com. I ship it worldwide, anywhere you live. You got it. This book right here is called The Overseas Basketball Blueprint. I wrote this book for any basketball player who wants to play professional basketball anywhere in the world. Even if you've been overlooked, you've been underrated, you never really got a real opportunity, nobody ever took a chance on you, even if you didn't play anywhere yet, you barely played in high school, you didn't get a chance to play in college, or maybe you did but you didn't put up great stats, or you don't have great film or any of that, you just want a chance to get your foot in the door and get paid to play professional basketball while you travel the world and get your food and housing and flights paid for by a professional basketball team, just to say that you did it, that you made it. Go to balloverseas.com if you want to get a career in professional basketball. Balloverseas.com. There are only 5,000 jobs in professional basketball in the entire world for American-born players. Only 5,000. That sounds like a lot. It is not a lot. If you want one of those jobs, go to balloverseas.com. The book is paid for. 237 pages. All you do is take care of the shipping. Balloverseas.com. Now, whoever got a question, go ahead and post it in the comment section. We're going to get to it right now. Hope y'all was taking notes on what I said here today. If you weren't taking notes, then watch the replay on IG. You got 24 hours. And if you want to see this anytime ever, go to my Facebook page because I'm on live on Facebook at the same time. And this live will be up there forever. All you got to do is look it up. C. Laura says, school education isn't for me. I appreciate taking advantage of the fact that it's free, which most people in parts of the world don't have it. So I'm always grateful. That's what's up. And if you listen to school, eventually the teacher's going to say something. I mean, if you listen every day, they'll eventually say one thing that's useful. I ain't saying some teachers are better than others, so take that for what it's worth. But if you listen often enough, somebody's going to say something valuable. You just got to be paying attention. CGR says, would you recommend the Overseas Blueprint for someone who is actually from Europe? Yes, absolutely. I ship, you know how many books, you know how many of these we shipped to Europe? I done shipped about 50 of these books to Europe just in the last 3 months because players from Europe are getting this book. Because what you need to understand, CGR, is that this book explains the principles. The book is not about the United States. This is about the principles of how to get a pro basketball career. It is not about actually America itself. It's about playing ball all over the world. So whatever country you're playing in, if you want to get into that pro league, just because you live in whatever country or because you're in Europe, doesn't mean it's any easier for you than it is for somebody who's from the USA. And trust me, I know. Because I played pro ball overseas and I met Europeans who would come to me and say, Dre, how do I get my next deal? How do I get an agent? How do I get on another team? How do you get your opportunities? And they were from Europe. They were asking me these questions. So I know that these principles apply to anyone all over the world. So in this book, listen, the things that we talk about in this book, the basics, what you need to know, how overseas works, what makes a professional, how to begin, how you can go pro even if you're from a small school or a small town, how I got my first contract, how I will start today, how to connect with agents, why an agent may ignore you, choosing the right exposure camps, pursuing basketball if you're working 9 to 5, what you need to know about money, any kind of scams that may be coming your way. None of that is anything about America. This is about playing ball overseas. So absolutely, yes, this book will work for anyone, anywhere in the world who wants to play pro basketball. Good question. That's my answer. Coach Cav says, do you believe that you can overwork yourself even if you're doing something you love, like needing to take a break to avoid burning out? Do I believe you can overwork yourself? Yes. I mean, overwork is a relative term, so it really depends on how that person feels. But yeah, you have to listen to your mind and listen to your body and know when it's time to take a break. You know, in the world that we live in today, a lot of people are on this, they call it productivity porn. productivity porn is just people always talking about hustling and working and grinding and doing their things. And maybe somebody would say that's me. They might say I'm always talking about those things, but I do make sure that I get a good 8 hours of rest every single day. It might not seem like it, but I do, because the time that I'm awake, I'm doing what I got to do. But when I'm asleep, I'm not on here doing what I'm doing. I'm resting. I take time for meditation every day. I do yoga every day. So I take time to take care of myself just as much as I take time to build my business and hustle and grind and all that. It's just a matter of maximizing your time. So whatever you're going to do, if you're going to rest. If you're going to work. But don't try to mix the two together. That's when people really get messed up. They're trying to mix them together. Like you're trying to spend time with your friends and your significant other and your kids, and you're trying to work at the same time. That's how burnout happens, because you're not giving yourself a separation of what you got going on. So yes, you can get burned out even when you're doing something you love. Michael Jordan got burned out. He retired and played baseball. If that's not a good example, that's not a good enough example. There you go, right there. So absolutely yes. IBW says, can you play overseas basketball without college experience? Yes, you can. Absolutely. If you can get on that court and prove to a decision maker in the professional basketball world that you can perform at a professional level against other professional players, they will sign you to a contract. And what you did in the past will become irrelevant. So with this book, I talk about that. If you came from a small school, or I came from a D3 school, I didn't have great stats. So basically nothing that I did at my college had any bearing on the fact that I played pro. It really didn't. Once I got my first deal, the only reason I got a second deal is because I got my first deal. And the reason I got my third deal is because of the second deal. So after you get your first deal, what you did in college doesn't really matter anymore. All that matters is, all right, this guy has a resume. He's played somewhere before. So that means he could play here. If he played there and did okay, he could play here and do something. So that's pretty much how it works. They look at what you've done. You ever heard the saying, what have you done for me lately? That's the way they do it. All right, so when you're new, they might be looking at your college background. So you might have to go somewhere and prove yourself so that you could prove you can do something. That's what I had to do. My college background wasn't impressive, so I had to go to an exposure camp. I proved myself at that camp, and I got myself a deal. Now, because I got my first deal, when it was time for my next deal, all they looked at was, what did he do before? Oh, he was overseas? All right, we'll sign him. All right, then my next opportunity, what did he do before? Oh, he was on that team? All right, we'll sign him. So that's the way that it works. They don't go back all the way to your very beginnings. They don't go back to your high school when you have a year of overseas experience. They go back to what you did the last place that you played. All right, that's what's up, CGR. Appreciate that. We got that coming. Anybody who's overseas, y'all know they delaying all the shipments and all that, but we got them on the way, trust me. Anybody who ordered, they on the way. IBW says, thank you for answering and responding. You'll get the book. That's what's up. Well, you ain't even got to buy the book. These books are already paid for. All you got to do is pay for the shipping. MirrorMotivation.com, BalgOverseas.com. I appreciate that you would buy the book, but I already paid for the book. All you got to do is pay for the shipping. That's why I did that, to make it easy. I don't want people to have to even think hard about getting these books, because these need to get in people's hands. T. Shakur was good, 2332. All right, so I'm going to tell you about these books one more time. If anybody else got a question, I'll take one more question. MirrorOfMotivation.com, Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. BalgOverseas.com, the Overseas Basketball Blueprint. If you already got these books, or you just need a different book to read, you can get this one right here. It's called Work on Your Game, Using the Pro Athlete Mindset to Dominate Your Game in Business, Sports, and Life. This is where I took all of my philosophy. If you like what I talk about here today, and what I talk about every day on these classes, I do like this every day, but on a different subject. I took all my best philosophies from this whole principle, this whole framework, all my best frameworks from this philosophy, rather, and I put them in this book right here. This is a 250-page book where I explained how I learned all these things, where I learned it, and how I implemented them, and then I tell you how to implement them in your life. There's a 4-part framework. This book is called Work on Your Game. You can get it at workonyourgamebook.com. And when you get this book from us at workonyourgamebook.com, I'm going to give you about $1,000 worth of online digital bonuses immediately. As soon as you order the book, I'm going to give you a bunch of bonuses that you can access right now online while you wait for the book to come in the mail. That's workonyourgamebook.com. You only get the bonuses if you go to workonyourgamebook.com. Yes, this book is on Amazon, it's on Audible, it's on iBooks. If you get it from there, that's cool, because you're still getting the book. You'll still get the material. But if you want the bonuses, you got to go to workonyourgamebook.com. Just want to make sure I'm making that clear. All right, I don't see any more questions. So everybody, we're going live every single day, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. If y'all like these, just keep showing up. I will keep coming live. Coach Kev said, you ever thought about doing a day in a life video where somebody follows you and records your daily experiences? Yeah, I'll do that. As soon as I got a full-time videographer following me around all day, I'll do that. But that's not my next most important hire. But when we get around to that, I will do it. So we'll see. So good question. So everybody, I'm doing these lives every single day, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Instagram at Dre Baldwin, and Facebook. My Facebook is /work on your game. So any of these lives that you ever miss, just go to my Facebook, click on the videos tab, and you'll see all my lives. They're all up there. Everybody have a great day. Work on your game. Be out of here. Dre all day.